Hello, tenants of YouTube. My name's Chris Callier, and I'm going to try and help you with your deposit release. So I'm a property manager down in London, and I'm wanting to sort of help and advise really on what you can do when it comes to your deposit release. So I've got a couple of points, and I'm going to take you through them all. So question one is, have you got a professional inventory? If the answer is no, then stick at zero. Stick at absolute zero, because if you go to deposit scheme arbitration, an arbitrator will definitely settle in your favour. So what does a professional inventory look like? You probably know, but you might not. So professional inventory is about 100 pages long, and it's incredibly boring and will have been given to you at the start of the tenancy, or at least within 2 weeks of you moving in. So that's the first question. Have you got a professional inventory? And if not, don't accept any of the deposit deductions, because if you go to deposit scheme arbitration, they will settle in your favour. So number two is, again, about the inventories. Is it an independent inventory? An independent and non-biased inventory is done by a professional company with a professional inventory clerk or clerk, depending on which side your butter is. Your bread is buttered. Is the standard and hallmark of of a professional inventory that can go to deposit scheme arbitration. A landlord might try and do one of them themselves, and unfortunately, unless they are incredibly detailed and going off the basis of one they've seen, it's very likely they're going to get it wrong, and they aren't going to do their relevant due diligence and things, and it might have been something that you just signed just to get in the property, to be honest. So I've seen it in the past. People have knocked up things on Word. They've done probably 2 pages of a what they call an inventory, no pictures, and just say everything is as new, and got the tenant to sign it. That's not going to hold up. So ask yourself, is it professional inventory? If it's not, stick at zero. So moving on to cases where you might be liable. So say you've done some damage to the property. I'll tell you this, like, I've definitely damaged this one, so don't feel bad about it. But have you damaged the property? So at this point, you might agree or disagree with the amount of money that they want to take. So it's inevitable that you're going to disagree, because the landlord always wants a little bit more money than probably is required. Now, when it comes to these deductions, you've got to remember that you're not liable to replace anything. You're only required to replace things given fair wear and tear and the amount of damage which is done. A great example of this is red wine on a carpet. Say you had a beautiful cream carpet, and you've spilled some red wine on it. Tried your best to get it out, but still the stain remains. A landlord might come to you and say, "You've ruined my carpet. I want a new carpet." Now, they can't do that. What they need to do is say, "You have damaged this amount of my carpet. This carpet cost £1,000 3 years ago. You've then got to discount it within line with depreciation, and then you've got to put an arbitrary amount on the amount that you've damaged and needs replacing." You see, that means it's a hell of a lot cheaper than you replacing the whole carpet. Now, landlord's going to come round to you, or an agent and says, "You've ruined the carpet though. Can't have that. Can't have that for the new tenant. It's not on you. Not on you." So don't worry. If that's the case, figure it out. So generally, the rule is, what's the lifespan of something? A carpet might last you 10 years, but it might only last you 8. So what I do in this case, to try and resolve things, is ask yourself how long you'd expect out of something. I'd say carpet maybe like 10 years. I'd say a wardrobe, depending on the quality, it can be 5 years, particularly if it's rubbish from IKEA that I have. So ask yourself the question. Don't let yourself be taken to replace everything, because in that case you'll be leaving the landlord better off, and you're not liable to do that. There's this thing called betterment. and it's one of these things which you're not liable to do. You're only liable to compensate for damages. So think on that one, and if you do agree to get damages, sometimes getting a quote, if it's a lengthy dispute, get a quote, get a desktop quote from one or two people, from a couple of people, a couple of contractors or tradesmen online, and find out, how much would it be done for? And if you submit that, you can say, look, this is how much it actually costs to replace this. This is how much I'm willing to pay. And that can put you in a very, very good position if it goes to deposit scheme arbitration as well. So think along those lines if you're running into some issues. Now, when it comes to it though, remember that it's only the disputed amount of the deposit which is allowed to be held. The undisputed amount needs to be released back to you, and that's ideally done after the 10-day period after you've left the property. So if you're not here, if they've not sort of withheld all of it, some money should be on its way to you. So just beware of that, because sometimes people and agents, they can hold your entire deposit, getting you to agree to a lesser amount, and that's not allowed. So make sure that if that's what they're trying to do to you, get onto them quickly and say, look, if you do this, I'm going to the deposit scheme now, and I'm reporting this, because if that's what they've done, that's a fundamental violation. So if they're doing that and you can prove that they're doing that, you're going to put yourself in a really, really good position come to the deposit scheme arbitration. But it's so likely they'll scare the shit out of them that they'll give you the money back. So between me and you. Next thing, rent arrears. Rent arrears is a bit of a funny one, really. The way that you need to look at it is, so I've been thinking about this, and what's the reason behind your rent arrears? Is the reason because you've withheld the rent because the landlord hasn't done something, or have they I don't know, or you haven't been able to pay, or something like that? Rent arrears aren't always that meets the eye. Generally, it's because you can't afford to pay. What can you do? Unfortunately, not very much. If you're in rent arrears, then you need to pay that. It's not good. It's not good karmically, and if it's a hell of a lot of money, it can come back and really bite you on the arse. Particularly if you've offended the ego of a landlord and letting agent. At this point, my advice to you would be just give them the money and let it go. If you don't feel that way because there's some issue, say there's maintenance issues or boiler down, that kind of thing, send it to the deposit scheme and get them to sort it out for you. But please, 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 please put yourself in a good position and prove it. Follow it up with emails, get them all on a PDF, and show what has happened exactly. If you come to me and you say, oh, my boiler was down for 5 days and I want the rent back, it ain't gonna fly. Because for one reason, you've got no evidence. The second reason is if you can't just claim that shit. You can't say that. You need evidence, and you still have the use of the property even without it. So it'd be a reduced amount anyway. So think on that. There's a bit more to it than meets the eye, but generally, if you're leaving in rent arrears, let them take the deposit and just get yourself out cleanly. If the agent's trying to charge you early termination and commission fees, the agent would have to come with you with the landlord to try and get that as a violation of contract. For the most part, they won't bother. But I won't want to lead you down the garden path. So know that is a risk, but generally they wouldn't want to do it. Okay, so moving on. I touched on it there. Have you got a long line beef with this landlord? It's things difficult because of this long line beef. You just don't like each other. You've got to try and put that to bed now. You've got to be reasonable, back your case still, but understand that getting into a very long, tedious fight is not worth it over 50 quid. I know sometimes it's a principle, but if you think about all the emails that you've got to return, or the time spent lodging the dispute, that kind of thing, time value of money, just think on that. It's not always worth it. But having said that, you should stand your ground. Don't be frightened or intimidated by, weasel agents, weasel landlords trying to come for your money, because that's what it is. It's your money at the end of the day. It's an insurance scheme. But you've got to be wise. You've got to be reasonable, and you've got to see things as they are written down in evidence. Forget the emotional turmoil. Forget that your landlord might be a dick. You've got to just look at it in terms of what's the evidence, and what can I claim for? What can I do to cement my position and strengthen my position to make sure that I'm coming out of this, fairly? And the arbitration scheme will help you do that if needs be. So, in conclusion, be honest, be fair, be reasonable, and at the same time, don't let an agent or a landlord come for you or come for the money that isn't reasonable. I'd dispute it, and if you can provide your own evidence to things, you can put yourself in a very, very strong position. And without professional inventory, you don't have to pay diddly squat. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed out there for you that you haven't got one, because then it means all the money's coming back to you one way or the other eventually. 9 times out of 10. So hopefully that's been helpful. Hopefully it's given you a little insight to the way these things usually go down. Please do leave a comment if you've got a question for me. I'll try and get around to you. I can't promise I will, but I'll try. And hopefully this is the start of a couple more helpful insight videos for landlords and tenants, or tenants and landlords, should I say. Peace and love. Goodbye. Take care of yourselves, and happy renting.